Sweat beaded on Amara Tate's brow as she stood, 16 and overlooked, in Lincoln High's chorus, her voice caged by Mrs. Holt's sneer, "You're no star." A tech glitch stalled rehearsal, and Amara, impulsive, unleashed a searing aria from Carmen, her notes shattering the auditorium's silence. Jaws dropped. Holt's eyes blazed with fury, vowing to bury this mistake. Whispers of scholarship swirled, but Holt's scowl loomed. Could Amara's gift survive her teacher's wrath? Before we dive in, let me know where you're watching from. If you stand for justice, hit like and subscribe, because tomorrow's episode will blow you away. Amara Tate's heart still raced from the auditorium's echo, her aria's final note lingering like a ghost in her mind. 16, with coiled braids brushing her shoulders, she stood in Lincoln High's music room, the memory of stunned faces fueling her. Yesterday she'd been a nobody, tucked in the chorus's back row, her voice dismissed by Mrs. Evelyn Holt, the choir director, whose pinched lips and cold blue eyes screamed disdain. Holt, a 50-something white woman with a reputation for sculpting stars, had called Amara unpolished and lacking refinement since freshman year, relegating her to humming backup while others got solos. But that fluke, that glorious glitch when the rehearsal track failed, had changed everything. Amara's voice, raw and molten, had poured out, a cascade of notes from Carmen that turned heads and sparked whispers of scholarships. For one fleeting moment she'd felt invincible. Now as she clutched her sheet music, the air felt heavier, Holt's shadow looming larger than the grand piano in the corner. The room buzzed with students, their chatter a low hum, but Holt's gaze sliced through, locking onto Amara with a venom that made her stomach twist. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Holt clapped sharply, silencing the room, her voice crisp as she announced rehearsal changes. Amara's name wasn't on the solo list. No surprise there, but the director's next words hit like a slap. "Miss Tate, step forward." Amara's sneakers squeaked on the polished floor, her pulse hammering. Holt's smile was thin, a blade's edge. "Your little stunt yesterday raised questions. Some believe you cheated, perhaps used a hidden track to fake your performance." Gasps rippled through the chorus. Amara's jaw tightened, heat rising in her cheeks. "I didn't cheat," she said, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Holt's brow arched, dismissive. "We'll see. Until proven otherwise, you're banned from solo auditions. Discipline issues, you understand." The room spun. Discipline issues? Amara had never missed a practice, never spoken out of turn. Whispers grew louder, classmates' eyes darting between her and Holt. A girl in the front row, Sarah, Holt's favorite, smirked, her blonde ponytail bouncing as she leaned to mutter something to her friend. Amara caught the word ghetto, and her fists clenched. Holt wasn't done. "Furthermore," she continued, her tone dripping with authority, "I've informed the school board of your disruptive behavior. They're reviewing your status as we speak." Amara's breath caught. The school board. Lincoln High was her lifeline, her ticket to college, to a future beyond the cracked sidewalks of her South Side neighborhood. Her mother, a nurse working double shifts, had drilled that into her since she was 6, singing hymns in their tiny apartment. Losing her place here could mean losing everything. "That's not fair," Amara said, louder now, her voice cutting through the murmurs. Holt's eyes narrowed, a predator sizing up prey. "Fairness is earned, Miss Tate. You'll learn that." The bell rang and students scattered, leaving Amara rooted to the spot, Holt's words echoing like a slammed door. She wanted to scream, to demand proof, but the director was already striding out, her heels clicking a warning. Amara's phone buzzed in her pocket, a text from her best friend, Kyla. "Heard Holt's trashing you. What's up?" Amara's fingers hovered over the screen, but no words came. She needed to fight back to show she wasn't a fraud. That night in her bedroom, posters of Beyoncé and Marian Anderson staring down, Amara set up her phone on a rickety tripod. The room smelled of her mother's lavender candles, a faint comfort against the storm brewing inside her. She sang, again this time a piece from La Traviata, her voice weaving through the melody's intricate turns, each note a defiance of Holt's lies. She uploaded the video to her laptop, titled it Amara Tate Real Voice, and emailed it to the school board, her heart pounding with hope. If they saw this, they'd know the truth. She pictured their faces, maybe even a scholarship offer, her name in lights. Sleep came fitfully, dreams of applause tangled with Holt's sneer. The next morning, Amara arrived at school early, her backpack heavy with textbooks and nerves. The halls buzzed with gossip, kids glancing her way, some with pity, others with smirks. She checked her email on the library computer, expecting a bored response. Nothing. By lunch, Kyla dragged her to the cafeteria, where the chatter was deafening. "They're saying you faked that video too," Kyla whispered, her brown eyes wide. "Holt's telling everyone it's edited." Amara's fork froze mid-air, rice and beans untouched. "How does she even know about it?" she asked, dread pooling in her gut. Kyla shrugged, but the answer came that afternoon in the principal's office. Mr. Daniels, a balding white man with a tired sigh, sat behind his desk, Holt at his side like a vulture. "Miss Tate," he began, "your email was intercepted by our IT system. Mrs. Holt reviewed the file and found evidence of tampering." Amara's mouth went dry. "That's impossible," she said. "I recorded it myself." Holt leaned forward, her perfume sharp and cloying. "Software can mimic anything these days. You've caused enough trouble." Daniels cleared his throat. "The board's decided to suspend you for 2 weeks, pending a full investigation. Any further stunts and it's expulsion." Amara's vision blurred, her mother's voice in her head. "Keep your head up, baby." But this wasn't just unfair, it was a setup. She stumbled out, the hallway a blur of lockers and laughter. Suspension meant no chorus, no classes, no shot at the scholarship she'd pinned her dreams on. Holt had twisted her triumph into a trap, and the school board, all white faces in suits, had swallowed it whole. Amara's phone buzzed again. This time a group chat with chorus kids. Sarah had posted a link to a video, and Amara's stomach dropped as she clicked. It was her, or seemed like her, yelling at Holt in the music room, her face contorted, words laced with curses she'd never said. The footage was grainy, the audio patched together, but the comments were vicious. "Typical. Thug. Kick. Her out." Amara's hands shook. Holt had done this, or someone in her pocket. The video had spread to the school's social media, racking up thousands of views, each one a nail in her coffin. She wanted to run, to hide, but her mother's shift wouldn't end for hours, and their apartment felt too small to hold this pain. Amara sat on the school steps, the Chicago wind biting her cheeks, and replayed the video's lies. Holt wasn't just a teacher. She was a machine, grinding down anyone who dared shine. Amara's aria had exposed her, and now Holt was rewriting the story, painting Amara as a cheat, a troublemaker, a stereotype. The suspension letter in her backpack felt like a branding iron, marking her as less than unworthy. She thought of her grandmother, who'd sung in church choirs through Jim Crow, her voice a shield against hate. Amara wanted to be that strong, but this felt bigger, uglier, a system rigged to silence her. She wiped her eyes, resolve hardening. Holt thought she'd won, but Amara wasn't done. She'd sing again, louder, truer, until the world heard. But as she stood, a new text from an unknown number flashed. "Keep quiet, or it gets worse." The words chilled her. Holt's shadow, stretching longer, darker. Amara's suspension wasn't the end, just the opening shot in a war she hadn't chosen. Her voice, her gift, had lit a spark. But Holt's power, woven into the school's bones, was a storm waiting to crush it. The video's lies spread faster, her name now a slur in hallways and group chats, and Amara knew the fight ahead would test every ounce of her strength. Amara Tate's world felt like a house of cards, each gust from Mrs. Evelyn Holt's wrath threatening to topple it. Suspended from Lincoln High, her name smeared by a doctored video that painted her as a screaming thug, the 16-year-old. Black girl clung to her voice, the one thing Holt couldn't steal. Her bedroom, a cramped sanctuary with peeling paint and a sagging mattress, became her stage. She sang to drown out the hate, her notes climbing the walls, defiant against the anonymous text that warned, "Keep quiet or it gets worse." Her mother, Renee, was still at the hospital, pulling another double shift, unaware of the suspension letter crumpled in Amara's backpack. The South Side's pulse, car horns, distant sirens, bled through the window, a reminder of the city's weight on her shoulders. Amara's phone, once a lifeline, now buzzed with venom. Classmates reposting Holt's lies, calling her a cheat, a fraud. She muted the notifications, her braids swinging as she paced, the memory of her aria in the auditorium a fading spark. Holt, with her polished suits and school board allies, had turned Amara's triumph into a trap, banning her from solos, rigging the system to silence her. But Amara wasn't built to break. Her grandmother's stories of singing through segregation echoed in her bones, urging her to fight. She needed a way out, a stage to prove her truth. That chance came unexpectedly, like a crack of sunlight through storm clouds. Kyla, her best friend with a knack for sniffing out hope, burst through the apartment door after school, her backpack slung low. "You gotta hear this," she said, thrusting her phone at Amara. The screen glowed with a local radio app, WCHI, where a DJ named Jamal Carter, a Southside legend with a voice like gravel and honey, was mid-broadcast. "Y'all, I got something special," Jamal drawled. "A friend slipped me a track from a kid named Amara Tate. Lincoln High's sleeping on her, but we ain't. Listen up." Amara's breath hitched as her La Traviata recording filled the room, her voice soaring, pure, and unshackled. She'd sent that file to the school board, only for Holt to intercept it, claim it was fake. How had Jamal gotten it? Kyla grinned. "My cousin knows his producer. I leaked it." Amara's eyes widened, torn between gratitude and fear. "What if Holt finds out?" Kyla shrugged. "Let her, you're a star." Jamal's voice cut back in. "Chicago's got a hidden gem, folks. This girl's voice could crack the sky. Call in, tell me what you think." The phone lines lit up, listeners flooding the station with praise. "She's unreal," one said. "Like Pavarotti with soul," another gushed. Amara's cheeks burned, a smile breaking through her dread. For the first time since Holt's ambush, she felt seen. By nightfall, WCHI's social media was ablaze. Hashtags like Dana Amara Tate and Tamaku Chicago Gem trending locally. Jamal tweeted her name, pinning her song to his page, and the clip racked up 10,000 plays. Amara's phone buzzed with new followers, strangers cheering her on. One message stood out, from a woman named Lena Price, a music scout for the Chicago Talent Showcase, an annual event that drew industry big shots. "Heard you on WCHI," Lena wrote. "Your voice is world-class. Want a spot in our showcase next month? 5-minute slot televised." Amara's heart leapt. The showcase was huge, a launchpad for careers with scouts from labels and conservatories in the audience. This was her shot to bypass Holt, to sing for the world. She replied instantly, accepting, her fingers trembling. Lena sent details. A 5-minute slot to perform any piece, rehearsals starting in a week at a downtown theater. Amara spent days preparing, her voice a blade she honed with every breath. She chose a piece from Ada, its soaring runs a chance to flex her range. She practiced in the apartment's tiny bathroom, the tiles amplifying her sound. Her reflection in the cracked mirror, a warrior staring back. Renee, finally home, caught her mid-note and froze, tears in her eyes. "Baby, you sound like angels," she said, hugging her tight. Amara didn't mention the suspension, not yet. She wanted to make her mother proud first. Rehearsals were grueling but electric. The theater, a grand old building with velvet seats and chandeliers, hummed with talent. Dancers, rappers, violinists, all vying for attention. Amara stood out, her voice cutting through the chaos, earning nods from other performers. Lena, a black woman with a warm smile and sharp business sense, coached her personally, tweaking her phrasing to hit every note like a thunderclap. "For you're a game changer," Lena said. "This showcase could land you a scholarship, maybe Juilliard." Amara's dreams swelled, her suspension a distant ache. She imagined Holt watching her on TV, choking on her own bile. The showcase was 3 days away when Amara's phone pinged with a new email from Lena. She opened it, expecting rehearsal notes, but the words stopped her cold. "Amara, I'm sorry. The organizers have pulled your slot. New evidence suggests your WCHI performance was fraudulent. We can't risk our reputation." Amara's knees buckled. Fraudulent. The room spun, her mother's laughter from the kitchen now a distant hum. She reread the email, each word a dagger. Lena had attached a document, a report from an audio expert, claiming Amara's radio track showed signs of digital manipulation. The expert's name was Dr. Paul Vernon, a professor Amara had never heard of. She Googled him, her fingers frantic, and found his bio, a consultant for the Chicago School Board, with a photo of him shaking hands with none other than Evelyn Holt at a fundraiser. Amara's blood ran cold. Holt had done this. Somehow she'd gotten to the organizers, twisted her radio moment into another lie. Amara called Lena, her voice shaking. "This isn't true," she pleaded. "Holt's behind it. She's been after me since I sang in rehearsal." Lena sighed, her tone heavy. "I believe you, Amara, but my hands are tied. The board's decision is final. Vernon's report was airtight and Holt vouched for it." Amara's chest tightened, rage and despair colliding. "What about you? You heard me sing." Lena paused, then said, "I'm fighting for you, but I need more proof. I'm sorry." The call ended and Amara sank to the floor. The Ada sheet music crumpled in her fist. Her big break, her chance to rise above Holt's hate, was gone. She checked WCHI's page, hoping for support, but the comments had turned sour, trolls echoing. Holt's lies, fake, overrated, just another wannabe. Jamal tried to defend her, tweeting, "Amara's the real deal, don't buy this noise," but the damage was done. The showcase's official account posted a statement. "Due to credibility concerns, Amara Tate has been removed from our lineup. We value integrity." Amara's name was now a punchline, her voice a footnote. She wanted to scream, to storm Holt's office, but the teacher's reach was a web, snaring every opportunity. That night, Amara sat on her fire escape, the Chicago skyline a blur of lights and shadows. Her mother was asleep, unaware of this new blow. Amara's suspension loomed, her future at Lincoln High hanging by a thread. Holt had turned her radio triumph into a trap, using her school board clout to poison the showcase. But Amara's voice wasn't silenced yet. She hummed Aida's melody, soft but fierce, a promise to herself. Holt thought she'd won, but Amara was still here, still singing. The question was, who else was in Holt's pocket and what would they take next? Drop a comment with the number 1 if you're raging at Holt's dirty tricks, or 2 if you think Amara's voice can still break through. Smash that like button, subscribe, and stay locked in, because the next chapter's about to hit harder. Will Amara find a new stage, or will Holt's next move bury her for good? Amara Tate's dreams felt like ashes, scattered by Mrs. Evelyn Holt's relentless vendetta. The Chicago Talent Showcase, her shot at redemption after a school suspension and a doctored smear video, had yanked her slot, swayed by Holt's fabricated report that branded her voice a fraud. At 16, Amara stood in her Southside apartment, the weight of Holt's lies pressing against her chest. Her phone, once alive with praise after her radio breakout on WCHI, now carried the sting of trolls, calling her a fake. Her mother, Renee, still didn't know the full scope of the battle. Amara couldn't bear to add to her exhaustion from hospital shifts. The city's hum outside, a mix of traffic and distant laughter, felt like a taunt. Holt, with her school, bored allies and polished cruelty, had turned Amara's aria into a curse, stripping her of every stage. But Amara's voice, a fire kindled by her grandmother's resilience, refused to dim. She sang softly in her room, the notes of Ada weaving through the air, a quiet rebellion against the teacher's chokehold. Her best friend, Kyla, had tried to lift her spirits, but even her optimism faltered after the showcase debacle. Amara needed a miracle, and it came from the unlikeliest place, her neighbors. Word of her talent and Holt's sabotage had spread through the South Side like wildfire, whispered in barbershops and church pews. Mrs. Jackson, a retired librarian, who lived downstairs, knocked on Amara's door one humid evening, her grey curls framing a determined face. "Child, we're not letting that woman bury you," she said, holding a flyer. It announced a community recital for Amara at Mount Zion Baptist Church, funded by small donations from the block, $50 here, $20 there, scraped together by folks who saw her as their own. "Sing for us," Mrs. Jackson urged, and Let the world hear. Amara's throat tightened, gratitude mixing with fear. A recital could be her comeback, a chance to prove Holt wrong. She nodded, clutching the flyer, its bold letters a lifeline. The church, a brick fortress with stained glass windows, became Amara's sanctuary over the next week. Volunteers transformed its fellowship hall into a stage, stringing lights and borrowing chairs from a local school. Amara rehearsed daily, her voice carving through the hymns that echoed in the rafters. She chose a medley, pieces from Tosca and The Marriage of Figaro, blending power and grace to show her range. Kyla helped with logistics, hauling speakers and posting flyers, while Renee, finally clued in, took a rare day off to sew Amara a dress, navy silk that shimmered like midnight. "You're my star," Renee whispered, pinning the hem. Amara felt the weight of their faith heavier than any spotlight. The recital night arrived, the air thick with summer heat and anticipation. Mount Zion's hall was packed, over 300 people, neighbors, classmates, even strangers drawn by WCHI's lingering buzz, crowding the pews. Amara stood backstage, her palms damp, the silk dress cool against her skin. The crowd's chatter was a low roar, their faces a sea of hope. Kyla peeked through the curtain, grinning. "They're here for you, girl." Amara nodded, her pulse a drumbeat. She stepped onto the stage, the lights blinding, and began to sing. Her voice erupted, a torrent of emotion that hushed the room. Tosca's lament gave way to Figaro's joy, each note a defiance of Holt's lies. The audience leaned forward, spellbound, phones raised to capture every second. When she finished, the hall exploded, cheers and stomps shaking the floor. Amara's eyes stung as she bowed, the standing ovation a roar in her ears. For one glorious moment, she was untouchable. Backstage, Mrs. Jackson hugged her, whispering, "You did us proud." Kyla uploaded the performance to YouTube, titled Amara Tate Unstoppable, and by morning it had 50,000 views, comments flooding. "And this girl's a legend. Holt's gotta be shaking." Amara's phone pinged with an email that stopped her heart. A recruiter from Juilliard, Dr. Elena Ruiz, who'd seen the video. "Your talent is extraordinary," Ruiz wrote. "We'd like to discuss scholarship opportunities. Please call." Amara's breath caught, her fingers trembling as she showed Renee. Her mother's scream of joy echoed through the apartment, a rare lightness in their world. Amara envisioned New York, a stage far from Holt's reach, her voice carrying her family to a better life. She dialed Ruiz, her hope soaring, believing she'd finally outrun her teacher's shadow. But Holt was never one to lose quietly. 2 days later, Amara woke to a text from Kyla. "Check the news." Her stomach dropped as she opened a local article. Mount Zion Baptist Church had been slapped with a city zoning violation, its fellowship hall deemed unsafe for public events. The recital was retroactively banned, and the church faced a $10,000 fine. Amara's heart sank further when she checked YouTube. The video was gone, flagged as stolen content by an anonymous complainant. Comments on the article were brutal. "Typical Southside scam. That girl's a con artist." Amara's phone buzzed with a new email from Ruiz, her tone curt. "Due to concerns about the legitimacy of your performance, we're pausing our discussions. Please address these issues." Amara's vision blurred, rage and despair colliding. She Googled the zoning law, her fingers frantic, and found a city council meeting transcript. The motion to enforce the violation came from a councilman, Richard Tate, who praised concerned educators for reporting the church. Tate's bio listed him as a longtime friend of Evelyn Holt, a donor to her music programs. Amara's blood boiled. Holt had struck again, using her City Hall connections to crash the recital and erase her triumph. The church's pastor, Reverend Ellis, called Amara that evening, his voice heavy. "We're fighting the fine, but the city's doubling down. They're saying your event caused the trouble." Amara's throat closed, guilt gnawing at her. Her neighbors had risked everything for her, and Holt had turned their love into a punishment. Renee, hearing the news, pulled Amara close, her nurse's hands steady. "This ain't your fault, baby. That woman's scared of you." But Amara felt the walls closing in. Her suspension still loomed. Her Juilliard dream was slipping, and Holt's reach seemed endless, a hydra with new heads for every blow. The viral video, her moment of glory, was now a ghost, its absence a louder lie than Holt's earlier smears. Amara sat on her bed, the navy dress folded in her closet, a reminder of a night that felt like a dream. She hummed Tosca's melody, soft but fierce, her voice a thread of defiance. Holt had taken the stage, the video, the scholarship, but Amara's fight wasn't over. She needed allies, a new plan, someone to expose Holt's web. The question was, who could she trust when even her victories turned to ash? The South Side's heartbeat pulsed outside, a city that loved her but couldn't shield her from Holt's wrath. Amara's next move would need to be bolder, riskier, to break through the teacher's iron grip. Amara Tate's spirit felt like a candle flickering in a gale, battered by Mrs. Evelyn Holt's unyielding crusade to silence her. The Mount Zion recital, a triumph that had lit up Chicago's South Side with her voice, was now a memory crushed. Under Holt's latest blow, a city zoning law that fined the church and erased Amara's viral video as stolen. At 16, Amara sat in her apartment, the navy silk dress from that night folded like a relic in her closet. Her suspension from Lincoln High lingered, a noose tightening with each day, and the Juilliard recruiter's rejection stung like salt in a wound. Her mother, Renee, worked longer shifts, unaware of the full scope of Holt's sabotage, while the city's pulse, shouts, engines, life, mocked Amara's shrinking world. Holt's web, spun through school boards and city halls, had turned her Aria's spark into a target. Yet Amara's voice, forged in her grandmother's defiance, burned on. She hummed Figaro's notes, a quiet vow to fight, though trust felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. Her neighbors' love had cost them dearly, and Kyla's texts, once fiery, now carried worry. Amara needed a guide, someone beyond Holt's reach. That guide appeared in a church basement, where Mount Zion held a community meeting to fight the fine. Amara, there to apologize for the trouble, stood in the back, her braids tucked under a hoodie. The crowd buzzed, voices sharp with plans when a woman approached, her silver hair glowing under the fluorescent lights. "Hi, you're Amara," she said, her voice warm like molasses. "I'm Clara Brooks, used to sing opera in New York." Amara froze, recognizing the name, a South Side legend who'd performed at the Met before retiring. Clara's eyes, deep and knowing, held no pity, only fire. "Your recital shook me. Let me teach you." Amara's heart raced, skepticism warring with hope. "Why me?" she asked. Clara smiled. "Because you've got a gift, and I've got scores to settle with folks like your teacher." Amara hesitated, Holt's betrayals a fresh scar, but Clara's offer was a lifeline. She agreed, and the next day, lessons began in Clara's cramped row house, its walls lined with vinyl records and faded posters. Clara was tough, her critiques sharp as a blade. "Breathe deeper," she'd snap, tapping Amara's diaphragm. "You're not a chorus girl. You're a force." Amara soaked it up, learning to wield her voice like a weapon, mastering Puccini's complex runs and Verdi's emotional depths. Clara taught her to channel pain, Holt's lies, the suspension, the lost showcase into every note. "Sing like you're tearing down walls," Clara said, and Amara did, her voice blooming into something fierce, untamed. Weeks passed, each lesson a step away from despair. Clara revealed a secret, a summer music camp in Michigan, elite and selective, with full scholarships for the best. "Audition," Clara urged. "It's your ticket out." Amara balked. The camp was a long shot and Holt's shadow loomed. But Clara insisted, arranging a private audition through a contact away from Chicago's prying eyes. Amara prepared a piece from La Bohème, its soaring melody a test of her new skills. The audition was in a rented studio, a stark room with a single piano. Amara faced 3 judges, their faces unreadable, and sang. Her voice spilled out, rich and raw, each note a defiance of Holt's chains. The judges' pens stopped scribbling, their eyes wide. When she finished, the head judge, a black woman with a silver streak in her hair, stood. "Miss Tate, that was extraordinary. You're in. Full scholarship." Amara's knees nearly gave out, joy flooding her. A scholarship meant a summer of training, a path to conservatories, a future Holt couldn't touch. She hugged Clara outside, the older woman's laugh a rare warmth. "Told you, kid," Clara said. Amara raced home, the South Side's grit blurring past, her heart alight. She pictured telling Renee, imagined packing for Michigan, her voice carrying her beyond Lincoln High's walls. That night she slept soundly, dreaming of stages and spotlights, believing she'd finally slipped Holt's grasp. But dawn brought a nightmare. Amara's phone buzzed with a news alert, a tabloid headline screaming, "Ghetto wannabe Chicago Teens Opera Act exposed as fraud." Her stomach plummeted as she read. The article, from a sleazy outlet called City Pulse, claimed her audition tape was suspiciously polished, quoting an anonymous source who called Amara a troubled kid with a rap sheet. It dug into her suspension, twisting it into proof of delinquency, and mocked her South Side roots, calling her a hustler chasing fame. Photos from the recital, stolen from Kyla's deleted video, were splashed across the page, her face distorted to look angry. Amara's hands shook, bile rising. The article had gone viral, shared by Holt's allies on social media, with comments like, "Knew she was fake" and "Back to the projects." Her phone pinged again, an email from the camp director. "Due to reputational concerns raised by recent reports, we must rescind your scholarship. We wish you well." Amara's vision blurred, tears spilling. The scholarship, her escape, was gone. She called Clara, her voice cracking. "Did you see this?" Clara's pause was too long, her tone flat. "I saw. I'm sorry, Amara. Some fights are bigger than us." Amara's gut twisted. Clara's words felt off, rehearsed. She hung up, her mind racing, and Googled the tabloid. A buried byline linked to a freelance writer, but a deeper search revealed Clara's name in old articles, tied to Holt through a music foundation they'd both served. Amara's blood ran cold. Clara had been in Holt's debt, a pawn sent to build her up, then tear her down. The audition tape, private and sacred, had been leaked by the one person Amara trusted. She stormed to Clara's row house, banging on the door, but it was locked, the windows dark. A neighbor said Clara had left town suddenly. Amara's chest heaved, betrayal cutting deeper than Holt's lies. She returned home, the apartment silent, Renee still at work. The tabloid's words burned in her mind, each slur a reminder of Holt's power. That afternoon, Amara was called to a school board meeting, her suspension review escalated by the article's fallout. Holt sat at the table, her face a mask of false pity. "Miss Tate's behavior reflects poorly on Lincoln High," she said, her voice smooth as ice. "Her recent publicity only confirms her instability." The board, all white except one, nodded, their pens scratching notes. Amara tried to speak, to explain Clara's betrayal, but the chairman cut her off. "We'll—" "Deliberate," he said, dismissing her. Outside, Holt's smirk was a blade, her heels clicking as she left. Amara stood on the steps, the Chicago wind sharp against her face, her scholarship a memory, her mentor a traitor. The tabloid had spread faster than her recital video, her name now a synonym for fraud. Holt had used Clara to strike at her heart, turning trust into a weapon. Amara's voice, once her shield, felt like a target, every note a risk. But she wasn't done. She clenched her fists, humming La Bohème's melody, a spark of defiance in the dark. Holt thought she'd broken her, but Amara's fight was just beginning. The question was, how could she rise when even her allies wore masks? Comment with a 1 if you're stunned by Clara's double cross, or a 2 if you believe Amara's. Voice can still shatter Holt's lies. Hit that like button, subscribe, and stay tuned because the next twist will leave you speechless. Who will Amara turn to now, and what's Holt's next cruel move? Amara Tate's heart was a bruised thing, battered by betrayal and the relentless wrath of Mrs. Evelyn Holt. Clara Brooks, the mentor who'd promised salvation, had been a snake in Holt's pocket, leaking Amara's audition tape to a tabloid. That branded her a ghetto wannabe. The scholarship to a Michigan music camp, her lifeline out of Chicago's South Side, was gone, and her name was poison, smeared across social media as a fraud. At 16, Amara stood in her apartment, the walls closing in, her navy silk dress a ghost of past triumphs. Her suspension from Lincoln High loomed like a guillotine, and her mother, Renee, still slogged through hospital shifts, unaware of Clara's knife. The city's rhythm, buses rumbling, voices shouting, felt like a pulse Amara couldn't match. Holt's power, woven through school boards, city halls, and now mentors, had turned her voice into a liability. Yet Amara's spirit, tempered by her grandmother's grit, refused to snap. She sang in whispers, Puccini's notes a shield against despair, though trust was a shard she couldn't piece back together. Kyla's texts, once a lifeline, now begged her to hide, but Amara was done running. She needed a stage, any stage, to prove her voice was real. That stage found her in a South Side alley, behind a barbershop where neon flickered against cracked brick. Kyla, ever the spark, had heard whispers of an underground open mic club, a secret haven for artists too raw for mainstream lights. "It's called The Vault," Kyla said, her eyes bright. "No names, no rules. You in?" Amara hesitated, Clara's betrayal a fresh wound, but the pull of singing, of being heard, was stronger. She nodded, and that night they slipped through a steel door into a basement pulsing with life. The vault was a cave of sound, its walls graffitied, its air thick with sweat and ambition. A DJ spun beats, poets spat fire, and singers bared their souls to a crowd of misfits. Amara, cloaked in a hoodie, signed up under a fake name, Nia Soul, to shield herself from Holt's spies. When her turn came, she stepped to the mic, the spotlight a warm blade on her face. She chose a piece from Madama Butterfly. Its delicate, runs a contrast to the room's grit. Her voice unfurled, a river of power and pain silencing the crowd. Notes soared, weaving loss and defiance, each one a middle finger to Holt's lies. The room erupted, fists pounding tables, strangers chanting, "Nia, Nia!" Amara's chest swelled, her pulse racing. For the first time since the recital, she felt alive. She returned to the vault night after night, her performances sharper, bolder. She mixed opera with soul, blending Verdi with Nina Simone, her voice a hybrid that broke rules and hearts. The crowd dubbed her the Phantom Diva, a mystery, artist who vanished after each set. Someone recorded her, a shaky phone clip uploaded to an obscure platform, and it spread like wildfire. By week 3, the Phantom Diva had 100,000 views, blogs buzzing with theories about her identity. Amara watched the numbers climb from her bedroom, her braids loose, her mother asleep down the hall. The comments were a lifeline. "She's unreal. This is what talent looks like." For a moment she believed she'd outrun Holt, her alias a fortress. Then came the email from a record label called Pulse Records, small but scrappy. "Nia Soul, we've seen your clips," it read. "Your voice is a revolution. Meet us to discuss a deal." Amara's breath caught, her fingers trembling over the screen. A deal could mean studios, tours, a shot at the life Holt swore she'd never have. She met the label's rep, a wiry guy named Marcus, at a diner near the vault. His enthusiasm was infectious, his plan clear. A single, then an EP, with a launch gig at a Chicago festival. "You're the real deal, Nia," he said, sliding a contract across the table. Amara read it under the diner's fluorescent glow, her heart pounding. She signed, her pen shaking, believing she'd finally won. The festival was a week away, and Amara threw herself into preparation, rehearsing in the vault, her voice a blade honed to cut through Holt's chains. She pictured the crowd, the label's pride, Renee's tears of joy, but Holt's shadow was never far. The night before the festival, Amara arrived at the vault for a final set, the basement packed, the air electric. She was midway through a searing rendition of Summertime when the steel door slammed open, boots thundering down the stairs. Cops in riot gear stormed in, flashlights slicing the dark, shouting, "Hands up, this is a raid!" The crowd scattered, bottles crashing as Amara froze, her mic dropping with a screech. A cop grabbed her arm, his grip iron, his badge glinting, Officer Daniel Holt. Amara's blood ran cold. Holt's nephew, a burly white man with his aunt's cold eyes, smirked. "Drug den," he barked, though no drugs were in sight. "You're coming with us?" Amara's mind raced. She'd seen no drugs, no deals, just music. The raid was a lie, a setup. She slipped free in the chaos, ducking through a back exit, her hoodie snagging on a pipe. Kyla, waiting outside, yanked her into an alley, their breaths ragged. "They knew you'd be here," Kyla whispered. Amara's stomach churned. Her alias was blown. By morning, the news was everywhere. Underground club raided. Suspect Nia soul tied to crime. A grainy photo of Amara, mid-song, splashed across local sites, her real name exposed. Pulse Records called, Marcus's voice grim. "We can't touch this, Amara. The backlash is too much. Deal's off." Amara's knees buckled, the contractor memory. She checked the vault's socials. Shuttered, its organizers arrested. The Phantom Diva branded a criminal. Comments online were vicious. Typical South Side trash. She was never legit. Amara's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Told you to stay quiet." Holt's fingerprints were all over it. Daniel's raid, the media spin, the label's retreat. It was her playbook, sharper and crueler than ever. Amara sat on her fire escape, the Chicago skyline, a jagged silhouette. Her mother's snores a faint comfort inside. The festival she'd dreamed of was tomorrow, but she was a fugitive in her own city, her voice a target once again. Holt had used her nephew to strike, turning the vault sanctuary into a trap, her alias into a noose. Amara's suspension, the tabloid smear, the church fine, all paled next to this. She'd been so close the labels offer a taste of freedom, but Holt's power was a machine, grinding her down. She clutched her phone, the Phantom Diva clip still cached offline, her voice a reminder of who she was. Her grandmother's words echoed, "Sing through the storm, baby." Amara hummed, summertime soft but fierce, her resolve hardening. Holt thought she'd won, but Amara wasn't out. She needed a new plan, a bolder stage, to expose Holt's game. The question was, how could she fight when her every move drew blood? The South Side's heartbeat thrummed below, a city that loved her but couldn't stop Holt's next blow. Amara Tate's world was a battlefield, each victory a fleeting gasp before Mrs. Evelyn Holt's next strike. The underground stage of the vault, where she'd shone as the Phantom Diva, had been shattered by a police raid led by Holt's nephew, Daniel, branding her a criminal and killing her record deal with Pulse Records. At 16, Amara stood in her South Side apartment, the Chicago skyline a cruel backdrop through her window. Her suspension from Lincoln High hung like a blade, her name smeared by tabloids and trolls, and her mother, Renee, still slogged through. Hospital shifts, unaware of the raid's fallout. The city's pulse, honks, shouts, life, felt like a rhythm Amara couldn't catch. Holt's machine, with its tendrils in schools, city halls, and now police precincts, had turned her voice into a curse. Yet Amara's resolve, forged in her grandmother's defiance, burned brighter. She hummed Nina Simone's notes, a quiet rebellion against the anonymous texts threatening worse if she didn't quit. Kyla's messages urged caution, but Amara was done hiding. She needed a weapon sharper than her voice, and her mother provided it. Renee came home late, her nurse's scrubs wrinkled, her eyes bloodshot, but fierce. Amara had confessed everything, Clara's betrayal, the tabloid, the raid, over a tense dinner of reheated chicken and rice. Renee's fork had clattered to the plate, her voice low. "That woman's been after you since day one. We're not letting her win." She'd heard of a lawyer, Marcus Reed, a South Side native who took on cases the city's elite ignored. "He's tough," Renee said, dialing his number, "and he hates bullies like Holt." Amara's heart lifted, a spark of hope in the dark. Marcus met them the next day in a storefront office, its walls plastered with photos of courtroom wins. A wiry black man in his 40s, he had a quick smile and sharper questions. "Holt's built a fortress," he said, reviewing Amara's case. "Suspension, smears, the church fine, the raid. But fortresses have cracks. We'll sue her and the school board for defamation, discrimination, the works." Amara's pulse raced. A lawsuit could clear her name, maybe even end Holt's reign. Renee nodded, signing papers, her savings on the line. "Do it," she said. Marcus filed the suit within days, a legal missile aimed at Holt's empire. The case moved fast, fueled by Marcus's reputation and the South Side's outrage. Amara's story, her aria, the recital, the phantom diva, hadn't died, simmering in barbershops and church groups. Witnesses came forward. Kyla testified about Holt's lies, Mrs. Jackson about the church's fine, even a vault regular about the raid's flimsiness. Amara prepared with Marcus, practicing her testimony in his office, her voice steady despite the knots in her stomach. She wore her navy silk dress to court, a symbol of the recital Holt couldn't erase. The courtroom, a stark chamber downtown, buzzed with tension. Holt sat across from Amara, her face a mask of calm, her lawyer a slick white man with a shark's grin. The school board's reps, all white, whispered behind briefcases. Amara testified first, her words clear, recounting Holt's slurs, the suspension, the raid. "She called me a fraud," Amara said, eyes locked on the judge, a stern black woman named Judge Carter. "She's tried to bury me because I'm black and I dared to sing." The room hushed, jurors leaning forward. Marcus presented evidence. WCHI's radio clip. The recital's deleted video recovered from a fan's phone. Texts from Daniel Holt's raid planning. Holt's lawyer countered, painting Amara as a troubled teen with a history of disruption, but Marcus dismantled it, exposing the tabloid's ties to Holt's allies. After 3 grueling days, Judge Carter ruled. "Mrs. Holt and the school board acted with clear bias," she declared, her gavel a thunderclap. "Amara Tate is awarded $20,000 in damages, and Mrs. Holt will issue a public apology." Amara's breath caught, Renee's hand squeezing hers. The courtroom buzzed, reporters scribbling. Outside, Kyla hugged her, screaming, "We got her." The settlement was a lifeline, money for Renee's debts, maybe a new start. Holt's apology aired on local news that night, her voice flat, her eyes cold. "I regret any misunderstanding with Miss Tate," she said. The words forced. Amara watched from her couch, Renee beaming, believing justice had landed. Amara felt the weight lift, her suspension lifted with the ruling, her name half cleared. She dreamed of returning to Lincoln High, singing again, maybe even contacting Juilliard. The South Side celebrated, neighbors dropping by with cake and congratulations. For one shining moment, Amara thought she'd won, but Holt was a viper, not a corpse. A week later, Amara woke to a call from Marcus, his voice tight. "We've got trouble." He'd been disbarred overnight, cited for ethics violations by the State Bar Association. Amara's stomach dropped as Marcus explained, an anonymous complaint backed by a forged email claiming he'd coerced witnesses. The email traced to a server linked to a school board consultant, Holt's ally. Without Marcus, the settlement was frozen, locked in a clerical error by the board's finance office. Amara's phone buzzed with a new alert, a federal probe into her family, alleging they'd bribed Judge Carter to sway the case. The news article splashed across Chicago's major outlets, quoted sources close to the school board, and featured a photo of Amara leaving court, her face twisted to look guilty. Comments online were vicious. "Crooked family. She's... Thacon always was." Amara's vision blurred, rage and fear colliding. The probe was a lie, but its shadow was real. Renee's job could be at risk, their apartment searched, their lives upended. She called Marcus, but his number was disconnected, his office shuttered. Kyla texted, frantic. Holt's at a board meeting, gloating. Amara watched a live stream, Holt's voice smooth as she addressed the board. "This case raises concerns. About corruption," she said, her eyes glinting. "We must protect our institution's integrity." The board nodded, their faces stone, and Amara knew Holt had orchestrated it all. Marcus's ruin, the frozen funds, the probe. She'd lost the settlement, her lawyer, her safety, all in one blow. Amara sat on her bed, the apartment silent, Renee at work, unaware of this new disaster. The navy dress hung in her closet, a reminder of a victory Holt had turned to ash. The federal probe's threat loomed, its agents already sniffing around neighbors, asking about suspicious payments. Holt had weaponized the system, her apology a performance, her retaliation a masterstroke. Amara's voice, her shield through every storm, felt fragile now, each note a risk in a city Holt owned. She hummed Verdi's melody, soft but fierce, her grandmother's words a faint echo. Sing through the storm. Holt thought she'd broken her, but Amara's fight wasn't over. She needed a new ally, a bolder plan to expose Holt's empire. The question was, how could she strike back when the system itself was Holt's sword? The South Side's heartbeat pulsed outside, a city that loved her but couldn't stop Holt's next move. Comment with a 1 if you're furious at Holt's. Ruthless comeback, or a 2 if you think Amara can still turn this around. Smash that like button, subscribe and stay locked in, because the next chapter's about to explode. Can Amara find a way to fight a federal probe, or will Holt's next trap be her final blow? Amara Tate's fight felt like a war against a hydra, each blow against Mrs. Evelyn Holt spawning a fiercer retaliation. The lawsuit victory, with its $20,000 settlement and Holt's forced apology, had been a fleeting triumph. Obliterated by Holt's machinations, her lawyer disbarred, the funds frozen, and a federal probe now targeting Amara's family for bribery. At 16, Amara stood in her South Side apartment, the Chicago wind rattling her window, her mother, Renee, still at the hospital, unaware of the probe's shadow. The city's pulse, car alarms, distant shouts, felt like a clock ticking down. Holt's empire, with its grip on schools, police, and now federal agents, had turned Amara's voice into a lightning rod. Her suspension from Lincoln High was lifted, but her name was mud, smeared by tabloids and a raid that branded her a criminal. Yet Amara's spirit, rooted in her grandmother's resilience, burned on. She hummed Puccini's notes, a quiet defiance, against the anonymous texts warning her to quit. Kyla's messages begged her to lay low, but Amara was done shrinking. She needed a stage to reclaim her truth, and Chicago's streets offered one. The Black Lives Matter rally was a last-minute chance, sparked by a police shooting in Englewood that lit the city ablaze with protests. Kyla's cousin, a rally organizer, had seen Amara's Phantom Diver clips and begged her to perform. "Sing for us," he said. "Show them we're still here." Amara hesitated. Holt's federal probe a fresh scar, but the rally's call was louder than her fear. She agreed, choosing a piece from Turandot, its soaring melody a cry for justice. The rally was set for Grant Park, a sprawl of green under Chicago's skyline where thousands would gather. Amara spent days preparing, her voice a blade sharpened in her apartment's bathroom, the tiles echoing her power. Renee, finally home, helped her pick a white dress, simple but striking, its fabric cool against Amara's skin. "You're my warrior," Renee said, her eyes wet. Amara didn't mention the probe, not yet. She wanted to give her mother hope. The rally day dawned, grey, the air thick with tension and summer heat. Grant Park buzzed with thousands, families, activists, students, holding signs that read "Justice Now" and "Black Lives Matter." Drums pounded, speakers roared, and Amara stood backstage, her pulse a wildfire. Kyla squeezed her hand, whispering, "You got this." When Amara stepped to the mic, the crowd's roar hushed, their faces a sea of expectation. She sang, her voice a tidal wave, Turandot's notes weaving grief and defiance. The crowd swayed, some crying, others raising fists, her music a thread uniting them. Phones captured every second, the clip destined to spread. When she finished, the park erupted, cheers shaking the ground, strangers chanting her name. Amara's chest heaved, tears stinging, as she bowed, feeling invincible. The clip went viral by nightfall, racking up 1 million views, dubbed the voice of the rally. News outlets picked it up, and a local TV station, WGN, invited Amara for a live interview. She arrived at the studio downtown, her white dress swapped for a navy blazer, her braids neat. The host, a black woman named Tanya Green, smiled warmly. "Amara, your rally performance moved millions," she said on air. "What's your story?" Amara took a breath, her voice steady. "Mrs. Holt, my choir teacher, tried to silence me because I'm black. She lied, smeared me, sent cops after me, but I'm still singing." The words poured out, raw and true, detailing the suspension, the raid, the probe. Tanya's eyes widened, the audience gasping. Social media exploded. Hashtags like Justice for Amara trending nationwide. The school board, under pressure, acted fast. By morning, a press release announced Holt's suspension, pending a full review of her conduct. Amara's phone buzzed with a new email, an invitation to audition for a national opera competition in New York, hosted by the Metropolitan Opera, with a slot reserved for emerging talent. The audition was in 2 weeks, a chance to sing for the world's top directors. Amara's heart soared, Renee hugging her tight, Kyla screaming over FaceTime. The South Side buzzed with pride, neighbors calling her our star. Amara practiced relentlessly, choosing a piece from La Traviata, its emotional depth a mirror of her fight. She pictured New York, the Met's golden curtains, Holt watching her rise from a TV screen, powerless. For one glorious moment, she believed she'd won, that Holt's suspension and the audition were her turning point. But Holt was a storm, not a memory. 3 days after the interview, Amara woke to a flood of notifications, her phone vibrating off her nightstand. Social media was ablaze with new clips, doctored to show Amara attacking Holt in the music room, her face twisted, her voice snarling slurs she'd never said. The footage, patched from old rehearsal videos, was convincing, spreading faster than her rally clip. Comments were vicious. She's a thug, lied about Holt, cancel her. Amara's stomach churned, recognizing Holt's handiwork. The clips traced to a fake account linked to Holt's allies, but the damage was done. WGN issued a statement distancing itself, calling the interview misleading. The Met emailed, Kurt, due to recent concerns, your audition is cancelled. We prioritize integrity. Amara's knees buckled, the world spinning. She checked her street from her window, and her blood ran cold. Protesters, mostly white, picketed outside her apartment, holding signs. No thugs in opera. Holt deserves justice. Their chants, laced with slurs, echoed up the block, neighbors watching in fear. Amara's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You should have stayed quiet. Holt's fingerprints were everywhere, her suspension a ruse to regroup, her allies weaponizing lies to bury Amara's. Truth. Renee, home early, pulled the curtains, her face tight. We'll get through this, baby, she said, but her voice shook. Amara wanted to believe her, but the protesters' shouts grew louder, bottles shattering on the sidewalk. The federal probe loomed, now fueled by the clips, agents calling Renee about witness intimidation. Holt had turned Amara's rally, her moment of unity, into a noose, her TV interview into a trap. The South Side's love, once a shield, felt fragile against this mob. Amara sat on her couch, the white dress folded in her room, a relic of a victory Holt had poisoned. Her voice, her weapon through every storm, felt like a spark in a hurricane, each note a risk in a city Holt ruled. She hummed La Traviata's melody, soft but fierce, her grandmother's words a faint anchor. Sing through the storm. Holt thought she'd broken her, but Amara's fight wasn't over. She needed a new ally, a way to expose Holt's lies, before the mob or the probe crushed her. The question was, who could she trust when her voice itself was now a crime? The city's heartbeat thrummed outside, a Chicago that loved her but couldn't stop Holt's next strike. Amara Tate's life was a tightrope. Each step toward freedom met with Mrs. Evelyn Holt's ruthless pull to drag her down. The Black Lives Matter rally, where her voice had united thousands, had been twisted by Holt's allies into a nightmare, doctored. Clips painting Amara as a violent thug, cancelling her Metropolitan Opera audition, and sparking protesters who hurled slurs outside her Southside apartment. At 16, Amara stood in her bedroom, the Chicago skyline a faint glow through her curtains. Her mother, Renee, pacing in the kitchen, fielding calls from federal agents, probing their bribery in the lawsuit. The city's pulse, sirens, wind, life, felt like a countdown. Holt's machine, with its claws in media, police, and now mobs, had turned Amara's voice into a beacon for hate. Her suspension was lifted, but her name was a slur, her rally clip buried under lies. Yet, Amara's core, forged in her grandmother's defiance, held firm. She hummed Turandot's notes, a quiet vow to fight, though trust was a ghost after Clara's betrayal. Kyla's texts urged her to hide, but Amara was done cowering. She needed a spark, a way to expose Holt's web, and it came from a shadow. Late one night, Amara's phone pinged with a message from an unknown handle, Phantom Diva Fan. "I know what Holt did," it read. "I've got proof she bribed the school board. Meet me at the diner on 63rd. Come alone." Amara's pulse spiked, Clara's knife still fresh, but the promise of evidence was too big to ignore. She slipped out, her hoodie up, the South Side's neon, and grit a blur. The diner, a greasy spoon with flickering lights, was near empty. A lanky black guy in his 20s with a buzz cut and a laptop waved her over. "I'm TJ," he said, his voice low. "Hacker, activist, whatever you need. Holt's dirty, and I've got her emails. Proof she paid off board members to suspend. You smear you everything." Amara's eyes narrowed, trust a thin thread. "Why help me?" TJ leaned back, his fingers drumming. "Holt's hurt people I care about. You're just the latest." He slid a USB drive across the table, its weight heavy in her palm. "These emails will bury her. Post them online, but move fast. She's got eyes everywhere." Amara clutched the drive, her heart racing. This could end Holt, clear her name, stop the probe. She thanked TJ, slipping back into the night, her mind alight with plans. At home, Amara plugged the drive into her laptop, her braids brushing her shoulders as she scrolled. The emails were dynamite, Holt to board members, promising donations for handling Amara Tate, coordinating the tabloid hit, even nudging Daniel's raid. One email mentioned a friend in the city council, tying Holt to the church fine. Amara's blood boiled, each word a confirmation of Holt's evil. She hesitated, the federal probe's threat looming, but her grandmother's voice echoed, "Sing through the storm." She uploaded the emails to a whistleblower site, titling it Holt's Conspiracy, and shared the link on every platform she could, tagging WCHI, WGN, even the BLM rally organizers. By dawn, the internet was ablaze, the emails racking up. Thousands of views. Hashtags like Sanders Expose Holt and Dunk Amara Truth surged, blogs dissecting the proof. WCHI's Jamal Carter tweeted, "Amara Tate's been fighting a war. These emails prove it." The school board, cornered by public fury, acted fast. A press release hit at noon. "Mrs. Evelyn Holt is terminated, effective immediately for misconduct." Amara's phone buzzed with texts. Kyla's, "You did." "It," and Renee's, "I'm so proud, baby." Neighbors knocked, cheering, their faith in her a balm. The federal probe paused, agents citing new evidence to review. Amara's chest swelled, her victory sharp and sweet. Then came the gala invite, a gilded email from the Chicago Arts Council, a group of elite patrons. "Miss Tate," it read, "your resilience and talent inspire us. Sing at our annual gala next week, a televised event for Chicago's luminaries." Amara's breath caught. The gala was huge, broadcast live, with critics and scouts in the crowd. She chose a piece from Carmen, its fire a mirror of her fight, and practiced in her apartment, her voice a thunderclap. Renee sewed her a new dress, emerald green, its shimmer a beacon. Amara pictured the stage, Holt's firing a stepping stone, the gala her launch to the stars. She believed she'd won, that TJ's gift had broken Holt's grip. But Holt's venom ran deeper. The gala night arrived, the Chicago Cultural Center's grand hall aglow with chandeliers and tuxedos. Amara stood backstage, her green dress gleaming, her pulse a drum. The crowd, 500 strong, buzzed with anticipation, cameras rolling. She stepped to the mic, her Carmen aria erupting, each note a blade through Holt's lies. Halfway through, the hall's doors burst open, a squad of cops storming in, led by a grim-faced detective. "Amara Tate," he barked, "you're under arrest for cybercrimes." The music stopped, gasps rippling through the crowd. Amara froze, her voice cut off, as cuffs snapped on her wrists. The detective waved a warrant claiming she'd hacked the school board's servers to leak the emails. Amara's mind reeled, the gala's lights blinding. She was led out, cameras flashing, the crowd whispering hacker and fraud. In the squad car, her phone buzzed with a message from TJ. "Sorry, kid, had to." Amara's stomach dropped, the truth crashing in. TJ was Holt's estranged son. a fact buried in old news clips she'd never checked. He'd planted malware in her phone during their diner meet, framing her for the hack to save his mother. The emails were real, but the leak was a trap, Holtz, firing a sacrifice to bait Amara into the gala's spotlight, only to crush her with cuffs. At the police station, Amara sat in a cold cell, her green dress creased, the gala's cheers a cruel memory. Renee was unreachable, still at work, and Kyla's texts couldn't pierce the station's walls. The news was already spinning. Amara Tate, teen hacker arrested mid-performance. Comments online were brutal. Always a criminal. Holt was right. Amara's victory, the emails, Holt's firing, was ash, her gala a stage for Holt's cruelest blow. TJ's betrayal cut deeper than Clara's, his hacker masterstroke that painted Amara as the villain. The federal probe, now fueled by the cybercrimes, loomed larger, threatening Renee's job, their home. Holt had used her own son to strike, turning Amara's truth into a lie, her voice into a crime. Amara sat on the cell's bench, the emerald dress a mockery of hope, her grandmother's words faint. Sing through the storm. She hummed Carmen's melody, soft but fierce, her resolve a flicker in the dark. Holt thought she'd won, but Amara wasn't broken. She needed a new plan, a way to escape this cage and expose TJ's game. The question was, how could she fight when her every ally turned traitor? The city's heartbeat pulsed beyond the bars, a Chicago that loved her but couldn't stop Holt's next move. Comment with a 1 if you're shocked by TJ's double-cross, or a 2 if you believe Amara's voice can still rise above this trap. Hit that like button, subscribe and stay tuned, because the next chapter's about to ignite. Will Amara break free from this cell, or has Holt finally caged her for good? Amara Tate's freedom was a memory, stolen by Mrs. Evelyn Holt's cruelest trap yet. Arrested mid-song at the Chicago Arts Council Gala, framed as a hacker by TJ, Holt's estranged son, Amara now sat in a juvenile detention cell, the emerald green dress from her performance crumpled on her frame. At 16, she was a Southside girl, caged by a system Holt had weaponized. Her voice, once a beacon, now a whisper in a concrete box. The city's pulse, vibrant with Chicago's life, was muffled beyond the bars, replaced by the clang of doors and the mutter of guards. Her mother, Renee, was still at the hospital, unreachable, and Kyla's texts couldn't breach the facility's walls. Holt's machine, with its grip on schools, police, and now courts, had turned Amara's leaked emails, proof of Holt's bribery, into a noose, branding her a cyber criminal. The federal probe targeting her family for bribery loomed, fueled by TJ's malware. Yet Amara's spirit, forged in her grandmother's defiance, flickered on. She hummed Carmen's notes, a quiet rebellion against the despair gnawing at her. The detention center, a grey maze of flickering lights and stale air, was a world of its own. Girls her age, mostly black and Latina, shuffled through, their eyes hard but weary. Amara kept her head down, her braids tucked under a borrowed cap, avoiding trouble. The guards, mostly white, barked orders, their glances heavy with judgment. Her first night she lay on a thin mattress, the cell's chill seeping into her bones, replaying TJ's text. Sorry, kid. Had to. Holt had used her own son to bait Amara, sacrificing her job to stage this arrest. A public humiliation that painted Amara as the villain. The gala's cheers, the crowd's awe, were now a cruel echo, drowned by news headlines. Teen hacker disrupts gala. Amara's voice, her shield through every storm, felt like a risk here, but she couldn't stay silent. In the rec room, a bare space with chipped tables and a lone radio, Amara found her stage. During a rare free hour, a girl named Yasmin, with a scar on her cheek and a sharp laugh, challenged her. Heard you sing opera or some fancy stuff, she said, tossing a deck of cards. Prove it. Amara hesitated, Holt's traps a fresh wound, but the girl's eyes, curious, not cruel, pulled her in. She stood, her sneakers scuffing the floor, and sang a piece from La Bohème, its tender notes a stark contrast to the room's grit. Her voice spilled out raw and powerful, weaving hope through the concrete. The girls froze, cards forgotten, their faces softening. Yasmin whistled low. Damn, girl, you're legit. Others clapped, some tearing up, their toughness melting. Amara's chest swelled, her pulse steady for the first time in days. She sang daily after that in the rec room or the yard, her voice a thread connecting the girls. They shared stories, stolen childhoods, rigged systems, and Amara's music became their escape, a fleeting freedom. One guard, a young black woman named Officer Maya Grant, lingered during these moments, her stern face softening. Maya, barely 25, had a South Side accent and eyes that saw too much. "You're troubled, Tate," she'd say, but her tone held respect. Amara didn't trust her, not after Clara and TJ, but Maya's glances felt different, less predatory. On the 5th day, Maya caught Amara singing alone in the yard, a quiet rendition of Summertime. "That's real," Maya said, leaning against the fence. "Keep it up, and you might get out of here." Amara nodded, wary, but kept singing, her voice a lifeline. That night, Maya did something reckless. She recorded Amara's rec room performance, a searing aria from Tosca, on her phone, smuggling it out. By morning, the clip hit the internet, uploaded anonymously to a platform called Free Voices titled Jailbird Diva. It went viral, racking up 2 million views, comments flooding in, "This girl's a queen. Free Amara Tate." The clip reached WCHI's Jamal Carter, who played it on air, raging, "This is what they're locking up, a voice like that?" Amara, unaware in her cell, felt the shift. Guards whispering, inmates grinning. The viral clip caught the eye of a pro bono lawyer, Sarah Nguyen, a Chicago activist known for taking on lost causes. Sarah visited Amara on day 7, her sharp suit a contrast to the cell's drabness. "I saw your video," she said, her voice crisp. "The hacking charge is flimsy, TJ's malware's traceable, I'm getting you out." Amara's heart leapt, skepticism warring with hope. Sarah worked fast, filing motions to dismiss, citing the email's authenticity and TJ's setup. The judge, pressured by public outcry, granted release on day 10 with charges pending review. Amara walked out, the detention center's gates clanging shut, Renee waiting with tears and a fierce hug. The South Side air hit her like a wave. Freedom sharp and fragile. Sarah warned her, "Stay clean, the feds are still watching." Amara nodded, her white dress from the rally folded in her bag, a symbol of fights unfinished. She believed she'd won, that Maya's clip and Sarah's grit had broken Holt's cage. But Holt's shadow was never gone. Hours after her release, Amara was fitted with an ankle monitor, its black plastic cold against her skin. The court, citing her flight risk from the vault raid, mandated it, branding her a felon in her own neighborhood. Neighbors stared as she walked home. The monitors beep a constant hum. Worse came that night, when Kyla texted a news link. Sarah's law office had been firebombed, its windows shattered, files charred. The article quoted police. "Suspected retaliation by hacker associates." Amara's stomach dropped, knowing Holt's hand. A deeper search revealed Holt's new role, a consultant for a private prison firm with ties to the judge who'd ordered the monitor. The firebombing wasn't random. It was a warning, scaring Sarah off. She called Amara, her voice shaken. "I'm sorry, Amara, I can't take this heat." Amara's release, her viral clip, was now a trap, the monitor, a chain, Sarah's exit, a blow. Renee, learning of the firebomb, locked their doors, her face tight. "We're not safe, baby." Amara wanted to scream, to storm Holt's new office, but the monitor's GPS tracked her every step. The federal probe loomed, now sniffing for arson links, agents knocking on neighbors' doors. Holt had turned Amara's freedom into a cage, her detention clip into a target, her lawyer into a casualty. The South Side's love, once a shield, felt thin against Holt's reach. Amara sat on her fire escape, the city's lights a distant promise, the ankle monitor a weight on. Her soul, her voice, her anchor through every storm felt like a spark in a void, each note a risk in a city Holt owned. She hummed Tosca's melody, soft but fierce, her grandmother's words a faint guide, "Sing through the storm." Holt thought she'd won, but Amara's fight wasn't over. She needed a new ally, a way to dodge the monitor and expose Holt's prison ties. The question was, How could she move when every step was watched? The city's heartbeat thrummed below, a Chicago that loved her but couldn't stop Holt's next strike. Amara Tate's freedom was a fragile thread, frayed by Mrs. Evelyn Holt's unrelenting crusade. Released from juvenile detention after a viral clip of her singing in lockup, Amara now wore an ankle monitor, its cold plastic a constant reminder of Holt's reach. The firebombing of her pro bono lawyer's office had left her defenseless, with the federal probe still sniffing for arson links tied to her family. At 16, Amara stood in her South Side apartment, the Chicago skyline, a distant flicker through her window, her mother Renee bolting the door against the city's threats. The urban hum, car horns, shouts, life, felt like a taunt, mocking her tethered existence. Holt's empire, now rooted in a private prison firm, had turned Amara's voice into a magnet for punishment. Her name, once a beacon, was smeared by headlines calling her a hacker, a thug, a fraud. Yet Amara's resolve, kindled by her grandmother's grit, burned steady. She hummed La Bohème's notes, a quiet defiance against the monitor's beep, though every step felt watched. Kyla's texts urged her to stay safe, but Amara was done waiting. She needed a stage to reclaim her power, and a new opportunity glimmered. A streaming platform, Soundwave, was hosting a national talent show, Rise to Fame, broadcast live to millions. Kyla spotted the open audition call online, its prize a $1 million recording contract. "This is you, Amara," she texted, her enthusiasm a spark. Amara hesitated, the gala arrest still raw, but the chance to sing for a global audience, to bypass Holt's local grip, was too big to ignore. She registered, her ankle monitor hidden under loose jeans, and prepared a piece from Madama Butterfly, its delicate strength a mirror of her fight. The audition was in a sleek studio downtown, its glass walls reflecting Chicago's towers. Amara arrived early, her white rally dress swapped for a black blouse, her braids swept into a bun. The room buzzed with hopefuls, rappers, dancers, singers, all eyeing the judges, a trio of industry vets led by a black producer named Malik Jones. Amara's turn came, her pulse a drumbeat as she stepped to the mic. She sang, her voice a cascade of pain and power, butterfly's notes weaving her story, suspension, raids, betrayal into every run. The judges leaned forward, Malik's pen frozen, his eyes wide. The room hushed, crew members pausing to listen. When she finished, Malik stood, clapping slowly. "That's a finalist," he said, his voice firm. The others nodded, and Amara's chest swelled, a smile breaking through her fear. She'd made the finals, set for a live broadcast in a week. The South Side erupted when the news hit, neighbors banging on her door with cheers, Renee hugging her tight. "You're unstoppable, baby," she said, her nurse's hands trembling. Amara practiced relentlessly, refining her piece, a new arrangement blending Butterfly with a soul riff, her voice a weapon honed to cut through Holt's lies. Soundwave promoted her heavily, her detention clip fueling buzz, their ads calling her the voice that won't break. The finals arrived, a massive event in Soldier Field, its stands packed with 50,000 fans, cameras sweeping the stage. Amara wore a crimson dress sewn by Renee, its sheen catching the lights. She sang last, her performance a firestorm, her voice soaring over the crowd, blending opera's grace with raw South Side soul. The stadium roared, phones flashing, her clip trending instantly with 5 million views. Malik on air called her a once-in-a-generation talent. Voting opened, fans flooding Soundwave's app, and by midnight Amara won, her name blazing on the Jumbotron. The crowd chanted, "Amara! Amara!" as Malik handed her a contract, $1 million in ink, promising studios, tours, a future. Renee cried in the stands, Kyla screaming beside her. Amara's heart soared, the monitor's weight forgotten, believing she'd finally outrun Holt's shadow. The South Side partied, her win a beacon for the block. But Holt's venom was never spent. 2 days later, Amara woke to a call from Malik, his voice grim. "We've got a problem." Soundwave had disqualified her, citing a violation of terms. Amara's stomach plummeted as he explained, an internal audit pushed by a new consultant found irregularities in the vote, claiming bots had inflated her tally. The consultant? Evelyn Holt, hired by Soundwave's CEO, a white exec named Charles Vaughan, who'd attended Holt's fundraisers. Amara's blood ran cold. Holt had rigged the audit, her prison firm ties giving her corporate clout. Worse, Vaughan leaked Amara's juvenile record, sealed but mysteriously accessed to the press, detailing her hacking arrest and detention. Headlines screamed, "Talent show fraud, Amara Tate's criminal past." Sponsors dropped her. Soundwave naming a white runner-up, a pop singer, as the new winner. Comments online were brutal. "Always a crook, South Side scum." Amara's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You never learn." Holt's hand was clear, her disqualification a surgical strike. That night, Amara's apartment shook with a crash, bricks through the windows, glass shattering. Across the floor, she and Renee ducked, hearts pounding as slurs spray-painted in red glared from the walls. Thug. Liar. The vandals were gone, but neighbors saw a black van speed off, its plates obscured. Police called it random, refusing to investigate, their eyes sliding over Amara's monitor. Renee, cleaning glass, whispered, "We can't stay here." Amara wanted to scream, to storm Soundwave's offices, but the monitor tracked her, the federal probe now sniffing for vandalism ties. Holt had turned her contract, her stadium triumph, into a trap, her record leak a public execution. The South Side's love, once a fortress, crumbled under fear, neighbors avoiding her eyes. Amara sat among the shards, the crimson dress folded. In her room, a relic of a victory Holt had poisoned. Her voice, her anchor through every storm, felt like an ember in a gale, each note a risk in a city Holt ruled. She hummed Butterfly's melody, soft but fierce, her grandmother's words a faint guide. Sing through the storm. Holt thought she'd won, but Amara's fight wasn't over. She needed a new plan, a way to dodge the monitor and expose Holt's corporate game. The question was, how could she rise when her home itself was a target? The city's heartbeat thrummed outside, a Chicago that loved her but couldn't stop Holt's next strike. Amara Tate's hope was a battered flame, nearly snuffed out by Mrs. Evelyn Holt's merciless campaign. The Soundwave talent show, where her voice had captivated millions, had ended in betrayal. Holt's rigged audit disqualified her. A leaked juvenile record branded her a criminal, and vandals, likely Holt's goons, smashed her apartment windows, leaving slurs in red paint. At 16, Amara stood in her South Side home, glass swept but scars remaining, her mother Renee nailing boards over the broken panes. The Chicago skyline flickered beyond, its lights distant, while the city's pulse, traffic, voices, life, sounded like a fading heartbeat. Holt's influence, now tied to corporate CEOs and prison firms, had turned Amara's voice into a bullseye. Her ankle monitor, a cold shackle from her detention release, beeped softly, tracking her every move. The federal probe, sniffing for vandalism ties, loomed over Renee's job, their home, their survival. Yet Amara's spirit, rooted in her grandmother's defiance, refused to break. She hummed Madama Butterfly's notes, a quiet vow to fight, though fear gnawed at her. Kyla's texts begged her to flee, but Amara was done running. She needed a stage, one Holt couldn't touch, and she'd build it herself. The idea sparked in a sleepless night, her crimson dress from the talent show folded like a battle flag. Her free concert, open to all, in a public park. Holt could rig auditions, but she couldn't stop a crowd. Amara called Kyla, who rallied her cousin, the BLM rally organizer, and Mrs. Jackson, the librarian who'd funded her church recital. They chose Douglas Park, a green sprawl on the west side, and spread the word through flyers, texts, and WCHIs. Jamal Carter, who tweeted, "Amara Tate singing for the people. Be there." Volunteers set up a makeshift stage, borrowing speakers from a local DJ, while Renee took a rare day off to help, her nurse's hands steady with pride. Amara chose a medley, pieces from Aida and Carmen, blended with a gospel riff, to honor her roots and her fight. She practiced in the apartment, her voice a thunderbolt shaking the boarded windows. Neighbors knocked, offering food, chairs, hope. "You're our voice," Mrs. Jackson said, her eyes fierce. Amara's chest tightened, their faith a weight she vowed to carry. The concert day dawned bright, the August heat thick but alive. Douglas Park swelled with thousands, South Side families, West Side crews, students, activists, even strangers drawn by the sound wave buzz. The crowd, 10,000 strong, sprawled across the grass, holding signs. Amara rising. Stop. Halt. Food trucks lined the edges. Kids danced, and a live stream set up by Kyla's tech-savvy cousin beamed to platforms worldwide. Amara stood backstage, in a silver dress Renee had sewn, its shimmer catching the sun. Her ankle monitor, hidden under a long skirt, felt lighter, its beep drowned by the crowd's roar. Kyla hugged her, whispering, "This is bigger than Holt." Amara nodded, her pulse a wildfire, and stepped to the mic. The crowd hushed, phones raised as she sang. Her voice erupted, Aida's triumph merging with Carmen's fire, gospel's soul lifting it higher. Each note was a blade carving her story. Suspension, raids, betrayal into the air. The crowd swayed, some crying, others cheering, their energy a shield. The live stream hit 1 million views mid-song, comments flooding in. "She's unstoppable. This is Chicago's heart." Amara's eyes stung, her voice soaring, the park a fortress of love. She ended with a gospel flourish, the crowd exploding, their stomps shaking the earth. For one radiant moment she was untouchable, Holt's chains broken. Backstage, her phone buzzed with an email from the Paris Opera House, a recruiter named Claire Dubois. "Your live stream is extraordinary. We offer you a debut in our next season. Please respond." Amara's breath caught, Renee's gasp echoing beside her. Paris, a world away from Holt's reach, was her dream reborn. She hugged Kyla, tears falling, believing she'd won, that the crowd's love and Paris's call had buried Holt's hate, but Holt's malice was a coiled snake, ready to strike. As Amara prepared her encore, a final thank you song, she scanned. The crowd, their faces alight. A glint caught her eye, a flash from a rooftop across the park, sharp and unnatural. Her stomach dropped, instinct screaming. She'd read about snipers, seen news of targeted activists. The glint moved, tracking her. Holt's texts, her goons, her prison ties. This was her endgame. Amara froze mid-breath, then dove behind the stage's speakers as a crack split the air, a bullet grazing the mic stand. The crowd screamed, scattering, parents shielding kids, phones dropping. Kyla yanked Amara down, her eyes wide. "Run!" she hissed. But the crowd, sensing the threat, closed ranks, forming a human wall. Around Amara, their bodies a shield. "Not our girl," a man shouted, others joining, their voices a roar. Police swarmed too late, the sniper gone, the rooftop empty. Amara, trembling, was hustled to a volunteer's van, her silver dress torn, the monitor's beep deafening. News broke within hours. Amara Tate concert targeted, suspect unknown. Holt was arrested that night, caught on a burner phone hiring the sniper, her prison firm's funds traced to the hit. The crowd's shield had saved Amara, their love, a miracle, but the Paris offer felt fragile, Holt's arrest a hollow win. Her texts had warned worse, and whispers of a bigger player lingered in police reports. Amara sat in the van, Renee clutching her hand, the park's chaos fading behind. The South Side's love, her voice's power, had defied Holt's. Bullet, but the glint's memory chilled her. Her grandmother's words echoed, "Sing through the storm." Holt was caged, but Amara's fight wasn't over. She needed to reach Paris, to expose the shadow behind Holt's cache. The question was, who was pulling the strings, and would they strike before she could sing again? The city's heartbeat thrummed outside, a Chicago that saved her, but couldn't stop the next threat. Amara Tate's survival was a miracle, her voice a blade that had cut through Mrs. Evelyn Holt's lethal trap. The Douglas Park concert, where 10,000 Chicagoans shielded her from a sniper's bullet, had ended with Holt's arrest, her prison firm's funds tied to the hit. The Paris Opera House's offer, a debut in their next season, was Amara's lifeline, a chance to escape Holt's shadow. At 16, she stood in her South Side apartment, packing a suitcase, her silver concert dress folded like a trophy. Her mother, Renee, hovered, her nurse's hands trembling with pride and fear. The federal probe now stalled after Holt's downfall. The Chicago skyline glowed beyond their boarded windows, its pulse, traffic, laughter, life, a faint promise. Holt's empire, though cracked, had left scars. Amara's ankle monitor, removed after the sniper's arrest, had branded her a felon. Her name, though cleared, still carried whispers of hacker and thug. Yet Amara's spirit, forged in her grandmother's defiance, soared. She hummed Ada's notes, a vow to conquer Paris, though the sniper's glint haunted her dreams. Kyla's texts buzzed with excitement, but Amara sensed a shadow. Holt's burner phone had hinted at a bigger player. She needed to sing, to expose the truth, and Paris was her stage. The journey began with a whirlwind. Renee, scraping savings, flew with her, their first time abroad. Paris was a dream, cobblestone streets, the Seine's shimmer, the Opera Garnier's golden facade. Amara, in a borrowed coat, felt small under its chandeliers, but her voice was ready. The Paris Opera's director, Claire Dubois, a stern French woman with kind eyes, coached her for weeks, refining her chosen piece, a soaring aria from La Traviata. "You're a force, Amara," Claire said, her accent thick. "Sing like you own this house." Amara absorbed every note, her braids swaying as she rehearsed in the Garnier's vast hall, its velvet seats a world away from Lincoln High's auditorium. Renee watched, tears falling, her pride a shield against Chicago's wounds. Amara's debut was set for a gala night, broadcast live to millions, with critics, patrons, and scouts filling the house. She chose a new dress, sapphire blue, its silk flowing like water, sewn by a local tailor who'd heard her story. The South Side sent love. Kyla live-streamed watch parties, Mrs. Jackson mailed a prayer card, Jamal Carter tweeted, "Amara's, taking Paris." Amara felt their faith, a fire in her chest, believing she'd escaped Holt's reach, that her voice would rewrite her story. The gala night arrived, the Garnier aglow, its marble stairs packed with tuxedos and gowns. Amara stood backstage, her pulse a storm, the sapphire dress catching the light. The crowd, 2,000 strong, hummed with anticipation, their whispers in French and English a soft roar. She stepped to the stage, the orchestra swelling, and sang. Her voice was a tempest, La Traviata's aria weaving joy and pain, each note a defiance of Holt's chains, suspension, raids, betrayal, bullets. The audience leaned forward, spellbound, phones banned to preserve the moment. Critics scribbled, scouts nodded, and when she finished, the hall erupted, a standing ovation shaking the chandeliers. Amara bowed, tears streaming, her heart alight. The broadcast hit 10 million views, headlines crowning her the Southside soprano. Paris adored her, critics calling her a revelation, scouts offering contracts. Renee hugged her backstage, sobbing, "You did it, baby." Amara believed she'd won, that Holt's arrest and Paris's love had buried her past. She envisioned a career, a life beyond Chicago's scars, her voice a beacon for others. But victory was a mirage. Mid-performance, as Amara's final note lingered, a spotlight shifted, landing on a man in the balcony, his face cold and sharp. She froze, her breath catching. He was older, white, with silver hair and a tailored suit, his smile a blade. The audience didn't notice, lost in applause, but Amara's gut screamed danger. Backstage, Claire whispered his name. Vincent Moreau, a global music mogul, CEO of Aria Global, a conglomerate that owned labels, venues, and streaming platforms. "He rarely attends," Claire said, puzzled. Amara's phone, left in her dressing room, buzzed with a news alert she'd see later. Moreau had mentored Holt decades ago, funding her rise in Chicago's music scene. The truth crashed in, a puzzle snapping together. Moreau had bankrolled Holt's attacks, suspension, tabloids, raids the sniper, to test Amara's resilience, to forge a star he could control. The sniper's burner phone, the prison firm's funds, Holt's corporate ties, they led to him. Amara's debut, her triumph, was his plan, her fame a prize he'd exploit for Aria Global's empire. She'd escaped Holt's cage, only to land in a larger one. The gala ended, but Amara's mind raced. Renee, unaware, beamed, planning a celebratory dinner. Amara smiled, hiding her dread as critics swarmed, offering praise. She Googled Moreau, her fingers trembling, finding articles tying him to Holt's fundraisers, his firm to Soundwave's CEO. A leaked email buried in a hack from years ago showed him praising Holt's methods for shaping talent. Amara's stomach churned. The Paris offer, the gala, the spotlight, they were his stage, her voice a tool for his brand. She remembered the sniper's glint, the crowd's shield, and knew Moreau's game was deadlier, his reach global. The South Side's love, Chicago's. Fight felt far away, unable to pierce this new shadow. Amara stood in her dressing room, the sapphire dress a symbol of a victory now tainted. Her voice, her weapon through every storm, felt like a spark in a vast machine. Each note a risk in a world Moreau owned. She hummed La Traviata's melody, soft but fierce, her grandmother's words a faint guide. Sing through the storm. Moreau thought he'd won, but Amara's fight wasn't over. She needed a plan, a way to expose his empire before he turned her into his puppet. The question was, how could she strike when the world's eyes were his? Paris's heartbeat thrummed. Outside, a city that loved her but couldn't stop Moreau's next move. Amara Tate's journey in Thinking She Lacks Talent. A biased music teacher assigns a black girl to the basic chorus line, reveals profound truths about resilience and systemic injustice. Her voice, a gift that soared despite racist barriers, teaches us that talent can shine through hate, but only with relentless fight. Amara faced suspension, smears, raids, and a sniper's bullet, each orchestrated by Mrs. Evelyn Holt, a racist teacher wielding institutional power. Yet every setback, Clara's betrayal, TJ's frame-up, Holt's corporate sabotage, forged Amara's grit. Her story shows that racist systems, like Holt's web of school boards and prison firms, thrive on silencing the marginalized, but community love, like the South Side's shield, can defy them. Amara's Paris debut, tainted by Vincent Moreau's manipulation, underscores that victory is fragile when power exploits pain for profit. Her refusal to bow, humming defiance in cells and spotlights, proves that inner strength can outlast oppression, but it demands allies and vigilance. We learn that racist structures don't crumble easily. Holt's arrest didn't end Moreau's game. Amara's fight urges us to question who pulls the strings and to amplify voices like hers. Her grandmother's wisdom, sing through the storm, is a call to persist, to create, to resist. Comment with a 1 if you're inspired by Amara's courage, or a 2 if you've faced similar battles. Like, subscribe and share to lift her story. Thanks for joining this journey. May you find your voice in every storm.